fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration, Monday edition, the Monday edition. A very special edition from me. I've got my brother David Grosskopf coming on. We're going to talk politics. Y'all might be thinking that's boring. It's not. Trust me. This dude is a straight up savage when it comes to anything really, but politics is his forte. And like I said, when James Henry contacted me and said, hey, let's talk about you being EVP, after I thought about it for a little bit, accepted that. David was the first phone call I made. The first phone call. And so he's on. You're going to love David Grosskopf, I'm telling you. He's running for trustee on the CLC slate, and that shows you how aggressive James Henry is with his slate. It's anti-establishment, anti-good old boy network. Nobody else running is anti-establishment. James Henry is the only one running that is saying, if you have sided with Renfro over the city letter carrier, I'm coming for your position. And it's a beautiful thing. I have always said, I have taken on the Postal Service on this podcast, and I have taken on the establishment because both of them have failed us. Both of them have. And so James is a beacon in the darkness with the slate he's putting together. David Grosskopf being a trustee is an example of that. This dude is a beast. And so David and I talk about this a little bit, but James is surrounding himself with those on the same mission as him. And that is straight up savagery. And you're going to love David. Now, next week I'll be in Puerto Rico. We're going to a function there. I'll be back Monday. And so I'll have another episode Monday. A lot of stuff we're going to go over Monday, another salted peanuts, okay? And so make sure you pay attention. That's going to be next Monday, all right? Now, I've got Paul Bolanger has his first episode on the Lion's Den. I'm going to put that up. He recorded that. I'm going to put that up for you probably tonight or tomorrow. You're going to love Paul Bolanger, another person that is straight up savage. These people put the city letter carrier first and only the city letter carrier. They're not putting title, position, anything like that above the city letter carrier like you have these fucking fools doing right now at National. And so I'll have that up. Y'all are going to love Paul. Paul and I talked last week, I believe. And so you're really going to like him. And so got David today. I'm going to do this one shout out, and then I'll have some more next Monday, but I've been sitting on this one. So it's branch 429. If you have time, I'd really love for you to give a shout out to our president, and I'm going to kill this last name, and I apologize. You know how I am. I'm a southern boy from Nashville. And y'all kill me with these names. I'm going to do the best I can. Branch 529. If you have the time, I'd really love for you to give a shout out to our president, Deanna Pokrefke, who I have to assume is the first female president this branch has ever seen, and she is an absolute badass. To say that she's helped me and educated me is an understatement. She has inspired me to light a fire under my ass for the union, which has allowed me to request the first 271G inspection our office has probably seen in decades. When I thought that was a win, she is already working on getting other carriers to join the movement, which could potentially open up 2 more full-time positions in our office. Hashtag light fucking blue. And I love that shit. So yeah, for Deanna, the president, good for you. We need many, many more just like you. Many, trust me, many more just like you. And so I can't wait for James to get in when we start educating the workroom floor, educating these different branches. That way we'll give some help to those presidents who may be overwhelmed, may not understand that position fully. Maybe like, hey, I'm stepping up because our current president has retired or is a piece of shit. And so we're going to step into that position, and I'm lost as hell. And so we'll be giving people like that help. The business agent's office should be doing that, but most of them are pieces of shit too. So, and you have some good business agents. Now, there's not one business agent in the country who likes me. Not one. They'll say, hey, Corey's out there. Not one of them like me. And that's okay. You don't have to. That's okay. You don't have to, because what's happened is you've had this good old boy network, this establishment, just doing their thing for so long, and then here comes this white boy from Nashville with a podcast and just disrupting shit. And so, they don't care for me. Not many up there do. And that's okay. Because when I started educating, I wanted to educate the workroom floor, the city letter carrier, the shop stewards, formulaes, advocates, doing anything I can to help them out. And like I've said a million times, about a year into it, I realized it's not management, it's the union. It's the union that's failing. Management is who they are. They're going to be dishonest, backstabbing, stealing, cheating. That's who they are. They will never change. They will never change. But my union, my agent, was failing us. And so there is a movement that started, and not because of me, but it just started because people started educating themselves on the failure of the union. And in doing so, business agents and those like them that weren't doing a damn thing are like, hang on just a second. Hell, we're over here not doing shit. Nobody's paying attention to us. And now all of a sudden you're talking about running somebody against me. And so, they don't care for me. And I haven't lost a second fucking sleep because of it. Because we're going to do away with that. We're going to do away with the establishment, the good old boys, the drunkards, womanizers, those that are pieces of shit. And we're going to get back to being fucking savages in our union like we should be. And we're going to address the toxic working environment on the floor like we should have been doing. And we're going to do a lot of things like that. Education is priority one, like it should be. And so we're going to have a good time of it. And Exhibit A will be David Grosskopf that you're going to hear in just a second, right? And so y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. Please, I love you more than I can tell you. It's all about light blue. It really is. And there's nothing more important. There is no second. Light blue is first and foremost. And come next year, it's going to be the year of the city letter carrier. We're going to take back over this union, and we're going to address things like they should have been addressed. You have Renfro coming out now on everything, trying to sell people on how skilled he is now and that he's listening to people. He's trying to sell people on, if you've listened to his podcast, on you already hear concessions about, you don't go in asking for everything. You got to understand your position when you go in, and he's already trying to get us to settle for less. I just don't understand that fucking shit. And so, you're going to see a lot of that clown here for the next year, unfortunately, and because he's got to try to save his position. And he's going to do everything humanly possible. He's like somebody else running for president. He's going to tell you everything that you want to hear and has no solutions. None. And so, but hey, shit's changing next year. I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it. They cannot stop what's coming. They just can't fucking stop what's coming. They can get out there to every fucking branch in the country. They can get on their Facebook page and on these podcasts and all this shit, tooting their horn. Look at me, I've learned now. I know that I failed y'all, but look at how much I've learned. It's too fucking late. The city letter carrier has turned their fucking back on you, and it's too fucking late. Now, I do know that he went to Pennsylvania, and 2/3 of them gave him a standing ovation. How in the fuck could you give somebody who has fucked us over like this clown a standing ovation? I will never understand that. And the business agent up there, thank God for Bill Kriebel running for business agent. My God. But all the shit that this motherfucker has done to us, and for somebody, just one person to stand up for this clown. What in the fuck has he done for us? What in the fuck has he done? Name one thing. I want somebody to name one fucking thing this dude has done for us. Can somebody do that? Send it to me. Text me. Send it to me on my Facebook. Say this. Just tell me one thing that this motherfucker's done. I can tell you 10 that he's done against us to every one that you tell me he's done. But it's bizarre. It just goes to show, the incumbent has the power of the purse, and they're going to be on social media at our expense, and you still have a little bit of support for this clown, but it's too late. It's too late. I'm rambling now. Shit, David's going to be on. I didn't mean to do that. But there's your shout out. Hey, y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. I'm going to have Paul Bolanger. I'm going to put that up on the Lions Den. You're going to love that guy. And you're going to love David Grosskopf. Not as much as I do, but you're going to love him. And then I'll be back on next Monday. Okay, we're going to, like I said, we're going to Puerto Rico. Got a function there. Can't wait to see my people. Wednesday night, I'm going to be in Wisconsin. It's going to be the Janesville branch 572. We'll be there Wednesday, all right? And so it's Janesville branch 572. Going to be there Wednesday. Going to be speaking 1605 Center Avenue in Janesville, all right? It's the Janesville Labor Temple. So if you're around that area, hope they don't mind if I ask y'all to come. Maybe I should have asked that first, but Janesville branch 572, we're going to be there Wednesday. And I can't wait to see y'all and look forward to that. And so, yeah, got a busy week coming up. Going to be in Janesville, and then going to be in Puerto Rico, and then we're going to go a lot of other places to see our people, all right? So I love you very much, like blue. I do. I love you, and I can't wait to get in there and start fighting for you like I should have been doing years and years and years and years ago. But better late than never, right? So here's David Grosskopf. You're going to love the guy. Straight savage. And I'll talk to y'all next Monday. All right? Bye. All right. I got my main man, my MVP, Mr. David Grosskopf with me. I talked a little bit last week about the very first phone call I made was to David, and he can verify that because as soon as I got off the phone with James, I immediately called Dave, and I think David knew that why I was calling because I said, "Hey, Dave, I just accepted EVP." He's like, "You're going to need some help with the political side of it." It's like, yes, I am. And so, David, I want you to. Everybody knows who you are, but we'll go ahead and tell them anyway. President of Branch 3, Buffalo.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And way back when, doing this podcast, you were one of the first ones to reach out to me and said, "Hey, you should be from up north. The way you curse so much." And that's like, I'm just old Southern boy down here. And matter of fact, one of the funniest things you did, I don't know if you remember this, was one episode I didn't cuss at all. And you remember you
I
called
thought
me?
you had a fever.
You called me and you was like, "Hey man, are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, well, what's up?" I just listened to the episode and you didn't say fuck once. I was like, yeah. But anyway, you're the first phone call I made. I've looked at a lot of social media. I've talked to a lot of people, and to me, you're numero uno as far as the political side of it. I think you're, like I said, I think you're brilliant. And you and I talked earlier, and you know some of the names that I'm surrounding myself with. Because, like I always said, if I'm the sharpest knife in the drawer when we get in a room, we're in trouble. And so I'm going to surround myself with those that I've considered to be brilliant. You're one of those. And so I want you to just talk about political plans, and because that's one of the biggest things we're going to deal with. I know a lot of people are talking. You and I talked about this as well, saying that they're concerned because Brian does well with the politics of it, and you and I disagree with that strongly. I disagree with that. I don't know that I could disagree with that any more than I do, but yeah, I just want you to talk about that. Now, don't worry about saying I, me, because this is one of the few times I do want you to do that, because you have been involved with a lot of things. You've done a lot of things that most people, well, nobody else has done really. It's talking about the S&DCs. But so, man, this is all yours. I want you to kind of give people a hint of what we're going to do when we get in there and why you're so important to me. Does that sound good?
Sounds great, brother.
All right, my man. It's all yours, baby.
Right. So what I did, Cor, when me and you talked is I want to back it up a little bit here, and I'm gonna go exactly with what you just mentioned. That issue or that fight over the Postmaster General's 10-year plan and the consolidation of the network and the S&DCs. Because I gotta be honest, I absolutely think the NALC failed miserably in that, and that to me has been the most important fight. Maybe other than the strike in 1970, is us not protecting our customers, our folks that we deliver to every day, their USPS service and delivery standards. And I'm going to start in 2021. DeJoy institutes his 10-year plan for the future of the United States Postal Service. Included in that plan, were severe reductions in service standards. One of his ideas was to change, if you remember this, the truck dispatch schedules at processing plants that required the trucks to leave the plants on schedule, even if clerk personnel had not finished processing mail and parcels destined for those trucks. And what this led to was, huge backups, mostly of parcels at processing plants. Trucks were actually leaving on schedule, on time, but in many cases, those trucks were empty. The public eventually became aware of this, and media outlets began covering, that issue. Also, both local and national political figures, were weighing in on what the heck was going on, with the public's post office. In Buffalo, we actually had parcels piled up 5 or 6 feet high and backed up as long as that plant is. The entire length of the plant. Like if you stood at the front of it, I was there. You could not see the back of it. We had to climb up on top of, those big, huge steel cages and look down. And that's all you saw was packages for literally a mile and a half. Mail was being delayed for weeks and not just days. And then the question arises, what was the NALC doing about that? There was silence from NALC headquarters, on the issue. There was no communication whatsoever with the branches on what our position should be relating to these backlogs and delays or any information on communication with the public or members of Congress. At the time, Renfro is now second in command of the union and in charge of letter carrier political fund and political communications, like you're going to be, in your job coming up here. Locals were left to fend for themselves. Even as members of Congress were calling us and asking, what the heck is going on at the post office? I'm getting calls from, congressmen and senators going, what is going on? And I'm trying to relay to them based on my sources in the plant what's happening. Fortunately, I've got a pretty, active branch here in branch 3. We were savvy enough to provide that information directly to our congressional folks as well as the media. We did plan and put together rallies and media opportunities and brought both local politicians, members of Congress, Brian Higgins at the time, and Senator Chuck Schumer. We brought them in for media opportunities. One of my first calls was to Brian Higgins in January, right before he retired in 2024, saying, listen, can you send something to the post office? I need you to go to that plant, and I need you to walk in that plant, because if a sitting congressman's walking in that plant, what do you think's going to happen to that mail? It's going to go bye-bye, right? And that worked like a charm. Congressman Higgins did exactly what we asked him to do. He got permission to walk in that plant. Sure enough, I started getting calls from my sources. They're moving all of those, steel cages out of there. And I'm like, that's exactly what we want to happen. We wanted that stuff being moved out of there. Senator Schumer came in for a press conference across the street, at the Bricklayers Hall. We never had any communication or contact from NALC headquarters. And again, the locals were left to fend for themselves. And unfortunately, a lot of them didn't know what to do in that situation. Then during the following year in 2022, the Biden midterm elections went through in New York with little to no direct involvement from Renfro or Letter Carrier Political Fund. The New York State Association and larger branches, we were begging for help in the competitive districts in New York, but Renfro refused to utilize letter carrier political funds to help Democrats in these districts. Actually, overall, letter carrier political fund um, donations was leaning more towards the Republican Party, at least in New York. Ultimately, in 2022, the Republicans gained control of the House of Representatives, and in large part because they won virtually all those competitive districts in New York. And this is where we're losing control of the government and having things in place with our friends to be able to do what we want. We lost 8 seats in New York. We were furious at that point because we weren't getting, the things that we needed from NALC headquarters. We pushed on these issues, and the only response that we got from Renfro was that, we needed DeJoy's help in convincing several Republican senators to support our legislative efforts, specifically postal reform. And that was why so much of the letter carrier political fund was going towards Republicans, and why the NALC refused to come out publicly against DeJoy and the 10-year plan. And I remember this vividly, Corey. It was a Region 11 rap session. And he's now retired, but Kenny Montgomery from Branch 210 got up there and got in Renfro's what. And
you can say it.
Yeah,
you can say it.
He got in Renfro's ass, and it was a pretty heated exchange between Kenny and Brian. And I remember, Brian lied about something, and I jumped out of my chair and got to a mic, right after Kenny did, and I went in on Brian. I said, it's absolutely ridiculous why you've got this 10-year plan. You're seeing what's happening all across the country where service and delivery standards are being decimated. You got our sister union, the APWU, who's taken a massive hit. They're losing jobs with these plant consolidations and these S&DCs. Now, again, the creation of the S&DC normally helped us as city letter carriers gain spots, but we're in a union. Right? When one of our sister unions is under attack, we don't stand back and be like, yeah, have at it, go get them. Right? And I questioned Brian on that. I'm like, what are we doing here? I said, why aren't we standing up and helping the APWU fight this? And, Brian's his literal response verbatim was, well, they didn't call me. And I said, I forgot. Maybe I've been in the NALC for the last 33 years. We take the damn lead on stuff like this. We don't wait for people to call us. We call them. We should have been picking up a phone, asking Diamondstein what he needed, and he should have had the full weight of, our political power behind him. And that didn't happen. I mean, again, you've got this guy ignoring the decimation of service and delivery standards across the country. You've got this guy, ignoring that, his sister unions need help. It's the same thing right now with all these attacks on the federal unions. Why aren't we out there helping these other federal unions? In my opinion, current administration is just picking everybody else off, trying to isolate us, and then they're going to come at us at some point.
Yeah, here's my thing about the S&DC, and you and I talked about this back when you was whipping its ass, they're putting them in. Yeah. Why would we not fight it? It doesn't matter if you lose. You won. I mean, they didn't put it in because of your actions. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Correct.
And so why would we not attack these everywhere? The carriers got fucked over in these things, man. Having to drive an hour to work now.
Exactly.
It's did nothing but harm the city letter carrier. Nothing. Why would you not attack every single one? If you lose, you lose. They're doing it anyway. So you really haven't lost anything. That's been my point about so many things with this administration. Attack it. Fight it. If you win, you've won everything. If you lose, you've not lost anything because they're already doing it. You took it upon yourself to say, hey, not here. My president may be asleep at the wheel. Not here. And right. Like you said, you got the wheels in motion on this thing. I remember hearing that y'all beat it, and I'm thinking to myself, how did this motherfucker beat that? That needs it needs to be the blueprint everywhere. But to me, if we're going to say, David, that if one's harmed, we're all harmed. Correct. If that's our motto, if that's what we're going to say, then okay, Buffalo succeeded. What about across the country? What are we doing for them? As Renfro said, hey, look, we got a blueprint now out of Buffalo. how we're going to address it, because I'm too damn stupid to do anything. Uh, Call David and get him on the horn and have him guide y'all through how to defeat these things, because it's hurting my city letter carriers. I've always said, David, I don't give a fuck about postal management. I just don't. You're the same as me. You and I are I think we're long lost brothers, but I
True.
mean, we look alike. But 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 to me, fight it. You fight this thing. That's what we're supposed to do as a union. To me, that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
And to just concede these things, I don't get it.
One of
I'll
the
never get it.
things, one of the things that, me and Brian went back and forth in the Region 11, rap session was, you know, Brian was saying, I had said to him, I said, listen, go to the Postmaster General. I'm not anti the network or the system didn't need to be changed. I've been a letter carrier for 33 years. I understand the mail makeup is very differently now than when I
Yeah,
first started. But what I told Brian is, why aren't you going to the Postmaster General? And like we do with a lot of things, is you knew that plan that he rolled out wasn't working. Go to him and ask him, say, listen, I'm with you. We need to, modify or change this network. But let's, for example, start in Atlanta because they were having a major problem down there. Let's perfect Atlanta. Once we got Atlanta fixed up, then whatever, then move that plan out. But we never got that. And then, like
yeah,
I said, it doesn't matter, if we're angering the Postmaster General, because the bottom line is, if this company ain't here, we ain't got any bills to pass in Congress. We don't have a collective bargaining agreement. And I said it to him, and I remember it vividly. I said, Brian, you could give me $50 an hour as a city letter carrier. It ain't going to matter if we're going to stand here and allow the Postmaster General to decimate the network and our livelihood. It's not going to
yeah,
matter. That
yeah.
fight had to be right then and there, and we totally dropped the ball on it. Let me keep going for you. In 2023, postal reform was finally signed into law. However, there was no subsequent changes in the actions from the NALC at the headquarters level. In 2024, DeJoy's plan began efforts toward consolidation of processing plants that included a further reduction in service standards. Once again, the public, the media, and members of Congress began publicly decrying these changes. The Buffalo processing plant popped up as a target, and once again, Branch Street planned and engaged in several public campaigns and encouraging the public's involvement and local congressional support. Once again, crickets from NALC headquarters at that level. Zero support for the branches, zero public information. The APWU, is a 180 from us. They engaged in planned days of action, which we were invited to help with, and we did, locally, and I know a lot of branches did across the country, but nothing directly from the NALC. Again, it was the locals that had to take it upon themselves to go, hey, guess what, sister union, national APWU, we got your back. We'll show up at your rally locally. We were successful in obtaining tremendous public support and ultimately stopping the consolidation, but totally on our own. Also in 2024, there is a change from Renfro and Letter Carrier Political Fund in how the NALC engaged in the national election. Even though the current president was the first president in history to include the possibility of privatization in his budget proposals during his first term, and also publicly called for the erosion of collective bargaining rights for the NALC, again, Renfro did little to nothing during the campaign for president. He failed to endorse Trump's opponent, a clear supporter of the public postal service and strong supporters of the NALC until very late in the game. Renfro also refused to utilize letter carrier political funds to release staff to help secure the Senate as well as the presidency. Renfro likes to tout his relationship with Republicans and claim that, we need them in the climate to stop Trump from drastic measures. Don't know about you, but, I don't trust the guy currently in charge of the government, Mr. Trump, or some of the Republicans to have our back in the long run. It'd be much better for the NALC to have friends in power in the White House and Congress instead of having to play defense and rely on a handful of Republicans to save us. Renfro was at the helm when Trump and the majority were elected. That, for the most part, oppose unions and target our benefits and our future. And where I'm going with this whole thing, Corey, is we need to change that attitude in Washington, D.C. Our entire collective bargaining agreement and our right to have one is still at stake. And with this lackadaisical, I don't want to, quote unquote, piss anybody off approach that we're having. And listen, and for people listening, to this podcast, I'm not here to totally, bash Republicans. I've got Republicans here in New York that are on my side that I talk to all the time, that I have on those bills. But what we need right now is we need to convince the Democrats and a lot of these Republicans that they need to be more afraid of us than the president. We need to wield the kind of power, to make them come to our side of the house. We as working class citizens need to forget about D's and R's, and work collectively together to make sure we got a Congress and we got a White House, that's working for us. I know people get upset when I start, saying Democrat, and Republican, and, you get into that tribalism a little bit. But listen, you can't ignore the fact of what the current administration has done, to the working people. And we need you Republicans to contact, your Republican members in Congress and the Senate and talk to them about this and say, look, this is totally unacceptable. It's my personal opinion that I don't think union members, including members of the NALC, prioritize, the work that they do high enough in their voting priorities. People tend to, whatever the subject matter is, whether that's guns or abortion or the border or immigration or, all these other things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you not to have an opinion on that, but I don't know about you, Corey Walton. If I don't make enough money to feed my family, that's a pretty big issue in my household.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
My thing, you and I talked about this the other day too, is that the city letter carrier shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Correct.
It should not be when we have a bill, every Democrat vote for us and two Republicans.
Right.
We're either the essential worker or we're not. And if we're the essential worker, we should be the essential worker to everybody over there across the street, not just the essential worker to the Democrats. That's the reality of it.
We are America's postal workers. We are America's postal service. We are America's delivery service. This should be a no-brainer.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. And that's one of the things that I love you so much about is that it's blunt force trauma. That's how you come at it. And when you talk about, say, the toxic working environment, the way we're going to address that, when you talk about education on the workroom floor, education of the city letter carrier, education of stewards and formulated stuff, the aggressiveness we're going to do that with. The political side is the same way. We're going to address that the same way. We're going after that the same way we're going after the toxic working environment, the same way we're going after educating the workroom floor, whatever else we're going to do. But the political side of it is going to be one of our more aggressive things. Because to me, 40% of our members are conservative. I believe that's what it is. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I believe it's 40% of our members are conservative. They have that right. Everybody, I've said this a million times, everybody's welcome in this union because we're going to need everybody. I don't care who you are, what you identify as, whatever. We need everybody in this fight because we are the essential worker. What can we do, David? What can we do to get those R's on our side? You say we don't want to do D and R, but the reality is anytime we have something, like I said, you've got all Democrats and two Republicans, three Republicans. What can we do when we get in there to say, Hey, look, we need to convince the Republicans we are the essential worker. Like you said, we need a different approach saying, look, if you don't, we will put somebody against you and we will put everything that we have behind them to make sure that you are unemployed in your position. Like that. But uh, tell me, what can we do with that?
It has to be tough talk.
Yeah,
And again, I just told you, I believe Brian Renfro didn't have tough talk with, for example, the Postmaster General. When I was fighting that SNDC at that public meeting, I was able to speak at that public meeting, and there's video of this. And when I finished what I had to say, about the Postmaster General and what I thought the Postal Service was about to attempt to do to the community of Western New York, I ended that thing by saying I do everything in my power to make sure that Postmaster General DeJoy lost his job. I wasn't coddling this man. I was telling him, if you're coming into Western New York, you're coming into a fight, buddy. And
yeah,
and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I look at the political side like I look at the grievance side, because that's how I came into this union as a contract enforcer. You're going to have dogs of war and work with Paul on that. We got to do that same thing. Right now, you've basically got, in my opinion, Brian and his chief of staff, they think they're calling all the shots politically. To me, that's completely backwards. What we should have is branch presidents and the Lickles. They're the informal A of the grievance procedure. They should be out there working their home districts and the Democrats and Republicans on both sides. And then you go up to that next level and you've got, formal A. And on the political side of the house, you've got your state presidents and your LPOs. And those people should be doing the same thing. So, in my opinion, by the time that the national president walks in the door, this should be simple. Democrats and Republicans should be going, whoa, 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 whoa. We got all the calls, we got all the
yeah,
emails, we got all that stuff. We know what your position is. You ain't even got to tell us. We're going to give you what you want. And if
yeah,
you don't, this is another issue we've had on the New York State Association side of the house. There's got to be consequences, and this goes for D and R's. If you're not supporting our issues, you're not getting our money. We keep, there's this theory that if you just keep donating, that's going to buy that goodwill. Listen, that's not working. All right, we've been doing that. It's not working. That's why I said, as labor, we have to get ourselves to the point where we're more powerful, that those congressional representatives are more afraid of us than anybody above them,
yeah,
because we do the work of this country.
yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think that starts, and how many times have I said this, David? You and I talked about this, educating the public. Educating the public, because hey, we're 240,000 of us, about
290, I believe.
290,
Yep.
and there's millions out there that are on our side. That's the power.
Yes.
When you talk about that, you and I talked about that the other day, is you've got to educate the public on who we are and the importance of us. We got a lot of money. I think we need to be spending that like crazy, educating the public on who we are, why we are. We are the essential worker. Like I always say, when COVID shut the world down, here we are out there getting it. The government shuts down, here we are out there getting it. You're going to see us every day. Nothing's going to change. And have those people that are real carriers talking to the American public on who we are. I think we could do a great job of that. I remember back when you're talking about contributing, when Colsep was so popular back in, it was 2008. Somewhere around, I know that was that because it was 2008, 2010, because that was when my business agent was trying to get to national. And one of the things they were looking at is Colsep contributions. And I was getting so many that he calls me. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I was getting 10 a day. And he's like, what are you doing to do this? And I said, well, I got the most staunch Democrat I could find to talk to the Democrats in the branch, and I got the most staunch conservative Republican to go sell those people on that. Why we need that? Because the first thing you think of when you think of political action fund is Democrats are getting all the money,
Right.
and so it's a hard sell for conservatives, for Republicans to say, "Hey, give me some money." I think that's why you need to let them understand. Look, we're going after everybody. Everybody. I
And
think
that's
that when,
something else that NALC headquarters needs to do is be more transparent with
yeah,
where that money's going and why that money's going there.
yeah,
Because again, a lot of people they want to shy away from the political arena. They don't want to get involved. It can get, charged up, rather quickly. But again, the more educated our members are, you're asking for their hard-earned money, right?
yeah,
And, they want to know where it's going. You
yeah,
need to tell them where it's going.
yeah,
It shouldn't, your state president shouldn't have to beg for a report to get that.
yeah,
As part of your political issue, in the postal record, at one time we were printing that stuff where all that money went. We need to get back to that because our members need to know this stuff. You
yeah,
know, it's most either they don't know what, letter carrier political fund is, or they have a misconception about what it is. And that's our jobs is to educate them, like it's our job to educate those congressional reps, like it's our job to educate the public on what is needed. And that's what we got to get back to. Just
yeah,
like the dogs of war going after management and that collective bargaining agreement, you got to have dogs of war on the political side of the house to do the
yeah,
same exact thing.
yeah. Well, and that sounds crazy, but that's one of the things that I'm most excited about is that is because most of the time when you talk to people and there's like, well, I got a Republican here, so they just give up.
Yep.
You're like, no, 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 you can't do that. That's who we need. That's who we need on our side. We've got to address those. Whether we're going to have to spend a lot of money and send people down there to help them with that, which is, I'm sure, what we will do. I've already talked to you, and I've told you some of the people that I have coming on with me to do that are extremely skilled. You know one of them yourself. But it's one of the things that I'm most excited about because I believe that we have failed miserably in selling them on who we are. To me, it should be an easy sell. It's the
Yeah.
easiest sell ever to say, hey, we need your support, not to privatize us.
Right.
That should be simple.
And
Why
I'll
would
tell
that
you
not?
this, I want to go into those conservative Republican areas because, in my opinion, that's the easier selling point because most of those are your smaller rural communities that the Postal Service is essential in.
Yeah,
Essential. It ain't like the
yeah,
big city, and I can't say Buffalo's a big city, but it's a bigger city, right?
yeah,
But in the big city, you got multiple options. When you get into these more, Republican conservative areas, they don't have many options. The only option they got is the U.S. Postal Service.
yeah,
So they're our biggest. From a community standpoint, those are our biggest cheerleaders the majority of the time because they
yeah.
understand the importance of that delivery system and why it's a lifeline for what they need on a daily basis to survive where they live.
Yeah, the city letter carrier to me, above any other profession, it is the easiest sell. Because I'll give you an example. I've been on my route that I'm delivering now for 25 years, and I've watched kids born, go away, come back with their kids.
Hmm.
I mean, we've seen that. You say you've delivered for 33 years. You know what I'm talking about. We watched them born and go to college and moved them in, moved them out and stuff. And I've had this a house on my route. This lady they start getting all these cards. Well, I know somebody's passed away. You just know that by seeing there's so many cards. And the lady came out today and, she's like, Corey, and she just starts crying, starts bawling, and she just walks into me, and I grab her and I hug her. And I didn't know it was her husband at the time. She's, a lot of relatives, and she just starts saying his first name. And I'm just holding her, saying I'm so sorry, and because I just seen this guy last week. He's
Yeah.
very active. He walks up and down the street all the time. But that's who we are, David. I mean, that's who we are. We are the community, and we are family to these people. We're the easiest sell that there is, and we do a terrible job of doing it. I think that you have somebody at the top that's clueless as far as that's concerned. When I hear people, you saw it the other day, people talking about, well, we're just afraid to vote for anybody else because, he is a failure, but he has the political side. No, he does not. He does not. If he had the political side, we would have more than two Republicans voting for us. It's easy to sell us to people who like us. That's the easy sell.
If he had the
But I believe
political side,
everybody should
he'd
like
have
us.
his home state, right? I mean, it'd be simple, right? Start
Yeah,
in your own backyard. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I do. I start in my
yeah.
own backyard. I get my own house in order, and then then I work myself out. And that's again some of the rhetoric I'm beginning to see, out there on social media is this gaslighting of the membership that if you vote him out, like somehow politically this whole thing is going to crumble. And that's just ridiculous,
Well, I
from a
think it will
stand.
ben I think it will benefit us.
Yeah.
Well, I know it will, first off, because the city letter carrier is going to be in much better hands by somebody who has no experience at doing anything. But just like I said, the sheer aggression that James Henry has, and you know what I'm talking about when you're on these meetings,
Yeah.
how the aggression that this man has towards the workroom floor, the things that we are going to do, the game plan he has for that, the game plan he has for politics of it. It's everything on steroids, and that's who James Henry is. Is he's a guy that, and I'm so excited, to get in there and start this shit. But yeah, it's beyond me how people can say he's just so good politically. How do you know that? Because he told you that? Uh,
Right, right. And then, the other thing, like, again, you're getting back to, James. Why doesn't somebody ask James how many times he's been to the White House? Okay, because the man's been there a number of times. Okay,
yeah,
it's not like James is coming in and he's got no political experience himself. But, to say that, all of this flows through Brian, it's just silly. The NELC has congressional support, not of any one individual. The political contacts across this country have been cultivated over years, covering again multiple national presidents, state presidents, LCLs, LPOs, NELC lobbyists, branch presidents, such as myself. The loss or change of one individual, in this case Brian Renfro, it will not change that network and its power, or our ability to lobby on Capitol Hill. And like me and you are talking, here tonight, many of us believe we can do much more congressionally that's currently happening.
yeah,
It's really that simple.
yeah. And like I said, talking with you and the others that I've told you about, they're ready. They're wanting to go in and address these things. Like we've been saying over and over and over again, it's going to be, politics on steroids, like we're going to do the dogs of war, like you talk about. Everything is going to be aggressive. We're going to go on the offensive. I think that one of the places, and you and I talked about this forever and ever and ever, is that when Brian waited 700 days,
Yeah.
you had to see or had to feel that Republicans were looking good for this election, and you led us into that, and then you use that as an excuse. Oh well, shit, Trump's in. I got to sell the carriers out now, and so somebody that's politically savvy should have seen that.
Yes.
But you led us 700 days into an administration that you say is not friendly to federal unions. Well, hell, whose fault is that? You're politically savvy and you couldn't see that coming. Who are you talking to? They didn't tell you, hey, y'all need to get shit done because it's not looking good.
It's not looking good. And again, politics as usual, or the establishment, the NALC establishment playbook as usual, it's not working. It's just
Yeah,
not working, especially
absolutely.
especially politically. Again,
Yeah.
what the definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. We have to stop doing that. Now, is there a risk in changing tact? Absolutely, there's a risk. There's a risk inherent in everything we do. But, to take your hands off the wheel and take a step back, and in this political environment, believe by being quiet or not being seen or not causing too big of a stink is somehow going to help you, well, that ain't working. Okay, so at some point, you have to be prepared to go to war, right? and
Yeah.
and that's where people like me come into play. We've done this. The
Yeah.
people, I've been very lucky, that the people that raised me in this union were very smart, very savvy people on the contract side, and on the political side. I mean, shout out to my mentor, Doug Fordyce. The guy taught me 90% everything I know contractually, and same thing, politically. The guy was the president, started off the president as Little Branch 760, Tonawanda, New York, where I delivered mail for 20 years. And then we merged with Branch 3. And Doug is still in this fight today. I mean, the guy still does cases for us in arbitration, and he's in that political fight. And he just stepped down as the LCCL here to give one of the younger guys the opportunity to step up and start training for the future. But, with a lot of the things that I've learned over the years have come directly from, the lessons he learned, in the 90s and the 2000s, being a leader in the NALC. So,
Well, you said this yesterday, and I loved it. But when Democrats are in charge, you should be aggressive.
yes,
When Republicans are in charge, you should be aggressive. And
yes.
we got 3 more years of this. So what do? Do you run and hide your head in the sand until it's all over with, like that storm a long time ago? I talked about the episode about the storm.
Yep.
We can just wait it out, or we can walk through it. And so we're going to walk through it, and we're going to be aggressive, whether it's a D or an R or an I or
Or
whoever.
C or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah. You've got to be aggressive, and I do not feel that we are aggressive right now. Uh, I'm an aggressive individual. You are an aggressive individual. I've known you, and I know you well enough to know that James Henry is extremely aggressive in the things that he wants to implement and do. And so the political side of it is something that I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm going to surround myself with those that are much more brilliant than me. That's the reason you're the first phone call I made, and that's true, right? You can vouch for that.
I'll vouch for that. Yes, sir. And again, we need each other. It's not a
Yeah,
matter of the initial after our names or what party we subscribe to. We need to understand in this country, the working man and woman is under attack.
yeah,
If we want to get back to a point where we're providing a solid middle class living, for our members, we all have to put all this, nonsense aside and our egos aside, and thinking, we're the man because we've got these contacts and we eat lunch with these important people. It don't matter at the end of the day if we're
yeah,
not getting anything accomplished. We have to work together to get this done, not only to save the postal service, but to save our union. And,
yeah,
it's disheartening, to see the amount of divisiveness that there is out there. And that's what I tell myself. I mean, I've got, a political persuasion myself, and I view certain subjects a certain way. But what I always tell myself is, no matter what that other person is, conservative, Republican, independent, whatever the deal is, that's a letter carrier. And it's
yeah,
my job as the branch president to
yeah,
protect that letter carrier.
yeah,
Doesn't matter if they agree with me. It's almost like,
yeah,
being in the the US military, right? These people put their asses on the line out for us all over the world. For what? So people like me can sip latte and eat avocado toast,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But they'll also allow me to criticize them if
yeah,
I so choose. And
yeah,
that's the mentality that we've got to get to in this union, is we have to work together for the greater good. It's that
yeah.
simple.
And we will. I mean, like you said, it's all light blue.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's all like blue. I don't give a shit if somebody likes me, doesn't like me, if they think like me, look like me, worship like me, if they vote like me, don't care. I've had several hundred arbitrations. I've never gone into a one and asked any of those questions. To
Right.
me, they're all like blue. I've gone into several hundred arbitrations. And I've never had an arbitrator say, "Hey, Corey, uh, are you are you a Republican or a Democrat?
Right.
How do you worship? Are you, are you gay? Are you straight or what?" They have never asked that. You know why? Because they don't give a fuck. We don't either. And
Right.
that's the great thing about it. And we can't. Um, to me, the best point you made was you had to be so overwhelming with who you go talk to that if the president decides, hey, I'm going to fuck with the post office, they say, no, sir.
Yes.
No,
You
sir.
you
We're not
have
doing
to,
that.
and I'm sure you know this, and I tell my young contractors and enforcers this, 90% of what we do is just having the stones to stand in the storm.
Yep.
There, okay, just hold that line, even if you don't know individually what you're doing. When there's people like us out there, we're coming to you. We're going to just hold that line. We'll get to you. We'll help you out. We'll help you fight that fight. And that's what we got to keep in mind here, together is, hold that line. Stand up to these people and tell them it's unacceptable. You're not going to destroy the service standards in my community. And if you think you are, I got 700 people sitting in this public meeting behind me that's
Yeah.
saying the hell you ain't.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
whose bluff you want to call? Right.
Yeah.
Make it
Well,
difficult for them. That's the
yes.
bottom line.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be a trustee. You're the trustee on the CLC slate.
Yes, sir.
And I love that because when we talk about James, James is going after the establishment. Um, Nobody else is. You have people running solo, but James is the only one that said, hey, I'm going after the good old boy system, the establishment. And I've put that, you might have put it up first and I stole it from you with the lions, running with the lions, saying, surround yourself with those in the same mission as you. I
Yes.
think I stole that from you. I can't remember.
Yes,
I
sir.
may have. I'm telling myself. But James is surrounding himself with those on the same mission as he is. Uh, you look at you, Khomeini, Cruz, trustees. Those are three savage individuals. And, people that know you understand fully what you're capable of. Me, I do. That's the reason you're the first phone call I made. But um, I'm going to have you back on. We'll come back on later on and we'll get into specifics of things, specifics. And I'd like to have you on several more times because I think that this is something I don't know that I've had an episode yet on the politics of it. I think this is my first one.
So you got to start somewhere, right? Dip your
You
toe
got,
in the water and you go from there.
it's baby steps. It's took me 3 years.
No, absolutely. And getting back to what you're saying, about the establishment, that we've got to change our mentality.
Yeah.
We've always done it this way. It's not working anymore.
No. No.
And again, I don't want to get on a rant here, but what's happened at NALC headquarters, since Brian Renfro has taken over, you say it and I say it all the time. These people, a lot of them, and I'm not here to tell you that everybody at NALC headquarters is bad, that it is a resident office, non-resident office staffer. I'm not saying that at all. But as a conglomerate, that executive council has failed the membership. When
Oh,
they decided to protect the president and not protect the membership, they showed you who they are. And
yeah.
now it's up to guys like us and women that we've got on our slate to stand up and say, all right, enough is enough. This isn't the bad news bears that are running against headquarters this time. You've got people out here. I got a resume a mile long. If if you're not friends with me on Facebook, the other day I posted a thing, asking for some donations because again, this is a very expensive thing to do. The incumbents have all the advantages, but I put up some things that I thought were important, that people need to know about me. The mere fact that people don't know who people like me are tells you everything you need to know about your own union.
Yeah.
You should be taking, these folks that are very good at what they do, and putting them out there and letting them do their thing. And unfortunately, we're caught up in the good old boy system like
Yeah.
we have been, since the inception. So
Yeah. Well, we're going to get rid of it this next election. That's a fact. And, but to me, you're the best of the best. And that's the reason I did call you. You're the first phone call. I've been watching you for a while. Like I said, it's not an I or me thing, but I wanted you to do an I or me thing because you're gifted. And it's just the fucking bottom line. You're gifted politically, much more than me. And so, if I don't need your help in arbitration, I don't need your help in formal A or informal grievance
tell me you're not
procedure.
using that geofence case. Come on, my man.
Hey, I gave you some love on that though.
I know you did. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. And that wasn't me again. That's Andrew Harrison, my young advocate.
Hey,
The kid's an incredible, young advocate. And this is something, and I'm sure you've seen this, Corey. I don't talk about myself.
yeah,
I talk about my team. I talk
yeah,
about what my branch does. I don't necessarily like to be in front of a camera or, something like that. You
yeah,
know, my job is running my team,
yeah,
here in Buffalo. And my job's a little different on the CLC. I am part of a team with James Henry, although I am also, second in command of the concerned letter carriers. So I have that team to help Ricardo, run also. But, that's the big, plus having, in my opinion, somebody like me around. I know how to run that team. I know how to run that team at a high level, and I know how to get those results. And that's what I want to do on the national level. I want
yeah,
letter carriers to be proud of their union. I
yeah,
want people, to walk around and be like, holy cow, man, that's a member of the NALC, because that's how it
yeah,
used to be when I was a young carrier and I started 30 years ago. It meant something that you were a letter carrier for the United States Postal
yeah,
Service. It meant something that Vince Sombrato was your president and you didn't fuck with the NALC, because if you
yeah,
did, that old guy put a foot again in your ass,
yeah,
pardon my French.
yeah,
And that's where I'd like to get back to. I'm not going to lie about it. That
yeah,
I think we need to be back in that arena. And
yeah,
again, we need to perform in the arena and we need to win. It's that simple.
yeah. I think that you got to have savages at every position, especially when you're talking about the highest level of the union. You've got to have savages in every position. And James is doing a fantastic job of that. I remember, get back to that decision. I told everybody, I told everybody if they wanted the decision, reach out to you, and you messaged me, you son of a bitch.
I'm like, I got like 300 emails. I'm like, what the heck? You know?
Hey, I was on my route laughing so hard. You sent me that message. It's like, you motherfucker, you.
Here's me every day. I'm going into work praying headquarters is going to put a damn C number on the thing, right? So
Yeah.
I could just go to the arbitration system and look up
Uh,
C number, and it took them like weeks. And I'm like, every
hey,
day, I'm not even joking. Every day, I was sending out dozens and dozens and dozens
yeah.
of emails. Not that I minded doing it. I
No,
really didn't, but I'm
I
like,
know.
good Lord.
Here's a branch president of a large branch, busy as fuck, and
Right.
I'm on my podcast saying, "Hey, this is an amazing decision, one of the best ones they've ever gotten. If you need it, email."
Right. Here's this guy's email address. Thanks, brother.
I was laughing my ass off when I was doing that. So he's gonna kill me next time he sees me. Oh, I apologize for that, man.
No, you're okay. You're okay. We want to get that out there because again, we want to help people.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
you're
beautiful
saying,
decision.
yeah, absolutely. Like you're saying, letter carriers are dealing with this with an improper instructions, across the
Yeah.
country where they can and they can't scan things, not in the office, in the office, all this nonsense. Like and
Yeah.
then it's got to stop.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. I mean, the letter carrier job is harder now than it's ever been. It's more stressful than it's ever been, and we got to do something to get these men and women on the workroom floor some relief. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, hey, arbitration is tough, man. Arbitration is tough. You've been in there before. Arbitration is tough. And for your advocate to go in there and convince them, even if management didn't show up, doesn't matter. You still got to prove your position.
That was their
And
argument. The argument was the burden's on the union.
yeah,
We don't have to say a word.
hey, just like I read from that discipline arbitration the other day, the arbitrator said, "Hey, if management doesn't meet the burden, it's over."
Yep.
It's that simple. If the union goes in there and doesn't meet their burden, that management can't do something under Article 3, they have a lot of leeway. Management's rights. They have a lot of leeway. A lot of arbitrators won't fuck with that. And to go in there and convince an arbitrator that, hey, look, here's some technology that they have that they're using, and we're saying that they can't. And to win that, that's a huge decision, man. And your
Yeah.
advocate did a fantastic job because, like I said, I don't care if management didn't show up or not. It's a heavy burden on our side to tell an arbitrator what management can or cannot do. And for him to sell that,
Especially
fantastic
when they're
decision.
instructing us, right? They've got the
Yep.
right to
Yep.
give us an instruction, and it's the iron rule: obey now and grieve later. And in that
Yeah.
case, that's exactly what we did. I just want to platform back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of new branch presidents out there. There's a lot of new LCCLs out there. There's a lot of new state presidents out there. And, just like, Paul Boulanger is the new director of education, is going to be implementing a bunch of these trainings. We've got to do that same thing on the political side of the house. Now, somebody
Yeah.
told me the other day at one of the state conventions that Brian did mention something about training, holding some training for the LCCLs, which is a good thing, and kudos to Brian. That's the right thing to do. But we need to be way more aggressive. We need to have the new branch presidents, and even us, branch presidents have been doing it a while. Everybody, top to bottom. Because the more educated we are again on that political side of the house, just like, in the grievance procedure, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my brother, I love you, my man, and I appreciate you more than you know. The help you've given me, and the support you've given me. Answering my phone call when I called you, saying you need some help politically. That's what you said. I said, yes, sir. And so, I can't think of anybody that I would rather have on my team than you, and that's the God's honest truth.
Thank you.
You've done it. You've been in those fucking trenches, man. And I want the motherfucker who's gonna get themselves fucking in that trench and get fucking dirty with it. And that's the type I want. That's the reason I think Paul's a great, like you said, director of education. Somebody who's gonna get in that fucking trench. It's not gonna be sitting behind a damn desk. It's gonna be out on the workroom floor, getting in the fucking mud and muck of it. And you're the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. So I appreciate you more than you know, my brother. I'm gonna have you back on, and we're gonna get into some specifics of things. We'll do that later, all right?
Sounds great, Corey.
All right, my man. Dave, have a great night. Hey, we're on the James Henry time frame. I'm calling you late. It's late at night. We were supposed to do this like 3 hours ago, but I forgot my grandson had a concert. And he's like, hey, take care of that grandbaby. And so
Exactly.
you go on to bed, man. I've kept you up way past your bedtime.
Yeah, it's like an hour past my bedtime. I got to get my beauty rest. You've seen this mug,
Well, you'll be asleep for a month.
right?
All right, baby. I'll holler at you later, Dave. Thank you, my man.
I love you, brother.
Love you, bud. See you, bud. Bye.
Bye.